Hey everybody, Tony D here. Little Joan is being a pill. She's on the couch. Uh, I can't do anything about little Joan. I don't know what her deal is today. Uh, she gets moody. What can I tell you? This is your Hollywoke Hot Take, and I am full of raspberries and chocolate chips. My new dessert that I just made up. I took a fresh pint of raspberries, washed them, put them in a bowl, dumped chocolate chips on them, and ate them together. And let me tell you something, I'm glad I did. Because it makes me feel better talking about how Hollywood continues to come unglued. If you want to hear more of my opinions on it, check out Hollywoke, another novel, where I talk about this kind of stuff. But let's get into it. Cher, if there are no Democrats to protect America, GOP will achieve the dream of white supremacy. Jesus, Cher. I mean, talk about dumping your purse open in front of everybody. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. I mean, this trope of Republicans hate black people, they're racist. I mean, back in the day, there wasn't even truth to it then. It is a media thing. And that doesn't mean there aren't racist GOP guys. There were. They all got kicked out because the GOP is under constant scrutiny. But people failed to realize how much more racist the Democratic Party is. The Democrats, back in the day, in the 20s, they were extreme racist. These were the guys who caucused with the KKK, who actually had enough members that they had people in Congress. Nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about Robert Byrd, a Democratic senator who actually was in the KKK, who mentored Hillary Clinton, who Joe Biden spoke to during his eulogy. You want to talk about racist? You want to talk about history? Talk about the Democrats. These are the people with the guilty conscience, not the GOP guys. Just because a guy wants to make money and he shafts a bunch of workers doesn't make him racist. Makes him greedy, makes him a bit of an a-hole, doesn't necessarily make him racist too. But this is an easy thing for the low information voters to cling to. And, back in the day it was like, well, Democrats, they're educated, smart people, and Republicans, well, they're a little dopey. Again, complete opposite now is true. The dopiest people in the world cling to the Democratic Party and say stuff like this. I mean, this is the dopiest thing you could say. Even as a Democrat, I would have said, whoa, that's a bit much, Cher. That is a bit much. And it's particularly bad if you're a celebrity. Now Cher's made her money. It's not like Cher's career is going to live or die on this statement. She'll still be able to go to casinos and stuff. She appeals to an older crowd. Although the older crowd tends to lean towards Republicans, so maybe she will lose a few of her fans. But at this point, Jesus, I think people need to grow up. 9 of Hollywood's biggest acts of hypocrisy. And it just goes down the list here at Breitbart. Me Too, China, global warming. Global warming? No cause is dear to Hollywood's heart than blaming human energy consumption for climate change. And yet, they're some of the biggest offenders. Stars including Leo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Harrison Ford, flying private jets and sailing on private yachts. That doesn't even begin to cover it. You ever been to a location after a movie company's left? Phew. They wreck the place sometimes. Sometimes. No, some movie companies are good about it. A lot of them are not. They just leave. They don't care. We're never coming back to this place. F it. And they pull up stakes and they disappear and they could care less about the trash or anything else. They do damage to local wildlife and people's houses and they don't care. So, global warming, yeah, it's a thing that celebrities pretend to care about. Georgia, yeah, they've been particularly bad with Georgia. Now punishing, first they loved Georgia, and now they're punishing Georgia because of the recent law, which they claim is racist. Oh, really? Well, it somehow managed to pass, even though you got 2 Democratic senators, one of which who has been accused of all kinds of stuff. But hey, it's never enough for these people. Gun control, of course. Racism, of course. Lockdown fever, as Breitbart calls it. Yeah, they're all for lockdowns because they're rich. Again, if I was as rich as them, I'd probably just lock myself down and never come out. Why bother? I have all the money in the world. I can have everything delivered to me on a silver platter. So it's not that big of a deal if you're in lockdown and you've got millions. It's a little different if you got a business and it's slowly unraveling. And every day you wonder, is this the day I'm going to have to close down the restaurant or the bar or whatever? Open borders. Yeah. Celebrities need house keepers and nannies and whatnot, and that's what they like. You know, I don't see a lot of these people hiring illegal aliens and giving them full benefits and $50,000 a year. Oh, but it's okay for them because they used to be poor. They used to be poor actors, you see. And healthcare. Yeah, ironically, SAG-AFTRA is facing a class action lawsuit from its own members who are accusing the industry's biggest union of revoking healthcare for elderly actors while in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah, because it's really only for people who don't need it. Didn't you know that in the unions in Hollywood? Mostly for people who don't need it. They pressure the rich guys to join. They don't need it. They're rich. Why would rich guys need to join the union? You're a big name director, star. You don't need to join the union. And it's not like their dues are adjusted according to their income, like some communist utopia. Although I'm sure some wish it were so. There are all these things to do to get into the union. It's really tough to get into the union. But there are plenty of working actors who, and other people who just can't get in. They just can't get in. They don't have enough credits. They need the blessing of some producer or whatever, and they ain't gonna get it. Oh, but they'll have health care while their career's around. When they fade from, exposure in history, then who cares, right? This is the funniest picture of Jimmy Kimmel as Karl Malone. Why hasn't he been canceled? According to the rules of cancel culture, shouldn't he go? Shouldn't he be gone forever from having a career? Rules are different for the rich. Viewers decry Amazon's Them for extreme racial violence, torture porn, and hate crime fantasies. Yeah, I saw the trailer for this. I didn't want to talk about it because it just looks weird and not fun. Amazon Prime's new horror series Them has met a storm of criticism depicting extreme racialized violence, including the murder of a black baby. Oh my God. No, that's too much. That's it. That just seems horrible. In the offensive scene, a white woman grabs a black baby boy, puts the child into a pillowcase, and throws it around carelessly before violently dropping him hard to the floor, killing him. All the while, the white woman gleefully yells, "Cat in a bag." That is just sadistic and awful. Okay, that has nothing to do with reality. Why would you... who would want to see this? That's horrible. Of course, Jordan Peterson... Jordan Peterson reacts to Marvel parodying him as a magical super Nazi. Yeah, and there's a podcaster, Chris Williamson, he interviewed him and he talked about it. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. Now, out of ignorance, malevolence, and slander, we will thereby derive some palatable good. And they're doing a series of merch called Hail Lobster because, like, with the Red Skull, it's Hail Hydra. Although I don't think he was in Hydra, at least in the beginning. That was, like, later. So he's got Hail Lobster, and everybody's making memes about the Red Skull saying Jordan Peterson stuff. Which, as Jordan says, it's probably the right way to go. Ignore these idiots. Laugh at them because they are ridiculous. Comedian Charlene Yee calls out James Franco, Seth Rogen over misconduct on the Disaster Artist, claiming the production attempted to bribe her after she tried to quit the movie in protest over Franco's alleged acts of sexual misconduct. Now, okay, so Franco was accused by his girlfriend, but I find those accusations extremely weak. And part of the problem is now, these accusations, I don't trust them anymore because people are now so overly sensitive. What they call a sexual predator, what they call sexual misconduct, it can be stretched to ridiculous degrees. So what you need now, and what you always really needed, is some sort of proof. Now, if she had filled out some charges against the movie and Franco when this happened in 2017, 4 years ago, I might be a little more inclined to go, oh, that doesn't sound good, but she's not. And I mean, I guess there's time. Is she going to fill out paperwork and sue him? Is she going to? Or is she just going to go on Instagram and complain and expect something to be done? Is her career careening into a ditch and this is a last-ditch effort to get some mileage out of her one thing? Or was she actually attacked by Franco? I don't know. What I do know is this doesn't look good for either side. It doesn't look good for Franco, but it also doesn't look good for her because she's going on and on about the patriarchy and white men. Sounds like she's got a bit of an agenda. It doesn't exactly help her case. So, is she a victim or does she just want to be one? I don't know. So I kind of think this is going to fade away unless she does something concrete, like show us some proof, get a lawyer, Filmmaker Shaka King, Hollywood distributors incredibly hostile towards black-led movies. I don't think that's true. In fact, the opposite is true. These guys usually trip over themselves right now for a black-led movie. I know. I had some dealings, I'll say, with a producer. And he made it pretty clear that they needed to have as many black people in the sort of hierarchy in order to get this movie distributed. So, not my experience. I don't know what he's talking about. Incredibly hostile? I mean, what is this? This isn't the 1940s. This isn't, even in the 70s there was a little hostility, but my God. Hollywood trips over itself to be woke. Now you're making this statement like it's true. You are hurting your own cause. You are making it less likely every day that people believe this nonsense. And in the end, what you're going to get is a situation in which when somebody actually has a credible accusation, they won't be heard because there have been too many uncredible ones, in my view. But you keep crying, I guess. Maybe this is some leverage to get a better deal, get another deal. Maybe his deal's ending and nobody's signing him up, and then this is sort of a shakedown to get another deal. I don't know. Maybe he's absolutely 100% right. Maybe in his experience they are incredibly hostile to black movies. I don't see it. I don't see it. I've had dealings with people who are in distribution, and they don't seem racially motivated at all. They don't distribute my movies. Should I assume they hate Italians? And finally, SNL endorses property damage if Derek Chauvin not convicted, mocks white people for opposing violent riots. It's a bit overblown gateway pundit, but not totally untrue. This is a sketch. You have two black news anchors in Minnesota, and then on the other side of the table are two white news anchors, which is a weird thing. Like, I've never seen that on TV, where there's like four people who are the news anchors, but whatever. And it's a show called Eye on Minnesota, and they're talking about the Chauvin trial, and the black anchors think Chauvin's guilty, and the white anchors think he's innocent. but they assume the other agrees with them, and all kinds of mistakes are made verbally. But what they're talking about, at one point, the white anchors try to bridge the gap by saying, well, I think we could all agree that a riot would be bad, and, property damage and looting would be awful. And then they're kind of like, well, which, you could argue is sort of outrageous and funny on one level, but, for a show that claims to be so self-righteously on the right side of history, seems like a terrible thing to endorse, even in a joke. But whatever. I think we know where the politics of Saturday Night Live lie. And, I'm sure if one of these rich actors and gets their house or business burned to the ground, I'm sure they'll just say, well, I got insurance. Like they said in the sketch, like Antifa said. Oh, well, it's just property. People have insurance. The insurance companies listen to you, right? They hear this stuff. They'd be more than happy to go, well, since you have that attitude, we're going to have to raise your rates. Or since you're in a riot zone, we're going to have to charge you more. You act as if insurance is free and everybody has it. Not exactly true. Insurance is very expensive. It keeps people out of business. It keeps people from starting businesses. You want to talk about something that keeps poorer people from starting a business in poor black neighborhoods. Insurance is one of those factors. But, now they're being funny. See, when they're being serious and you call them out, you're a jerk. But when they're a jerk and they're being funny, then you can't call them out. There was also, the idea that black people think Chauvin's guilty and white people think Chauvin's innocent, which isn't true at all. White people are absolutely petrified to disagree that Chauvin is not guilty. Many of them think Chauvin's very, very guilty because they've only seen the one portion of the tape, and they haven't really looked at the evidence. I would dare to guess that most people think Chauvin's guilty because they just haven't drilled down, and because the media constantly props up that narrative. I think Chauvin, I don't think he did George Floyd any favors, but I think George Floyd did more damage to himself than anybody else. And in the end, you can't convict a guy for, this act when the guy was going to die anyway and he was following procedure, it seems. But you're never going to hear that nuance on Saturday Night Live, so whatever. I'm pretty much done with SNL. Every once in a while they just pop up and this is the only reason why. It's not like, oh man, you got to see the outrageous sketch they did. It was so funny. It's always like, oh, Saturday Night Live weighed in on X. It's like Saturday Night Live has become a de facto political thing, which is just so pathetic and sad. Ay, whatever happened to Samurai Delicatessen? I miss those days.